And I think we're live.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, for everybody that's here, welcome. This is the Ask a Recruiter series. My name is Alex Blomster Horning, and this is my esteemed colleague, Andrew. We're both early in profession recruiters here at Microsoft. We actually sit on the same team, and our manager lovingly refers to us as yin and yang. And actually, at this point, we basically will answer to either of our names. So if I get called Andrew or he gets called Alex, we will both answer like, yeah, it's a compliment. Like we'll both do it.
We've started having interns have been starting to do it too. They'll be like, "Oh, you recruited me," and I'm like, "Did I actually recruit you, or did Alex recruit you?" Like, "Oh, it was the other guy with glasses.
Yeah,
it was the other tall guy with glasses."
The other tall guy with glasses, exactly. But anyway, no, we've been looking forward to this for quite a long time. So much of our role is talking with hiring managers and planning for interns and planning for hiring and reviewing resumes. But transparently, we don't get nearly enough time to share our expertise, share our information, and kind of help in a little bit more of a one-to-one scenario, or in this case, a little bit of a one-to-many. So this is something we've been really excited about. It's kind of setting a little bit of the ground floor of what to expect for today. This is not any kind of formal presentation. We don't have like a crazy long script or anything for what we're going through. Like most of this is supposed to be conversational in nature. I do have some notes and some things that Andrew and I have talked about that are like common scenarios, beliefs about recruiting, some stuff about AI as well, and kind of where that shows up in hiring or in recruiting in general. So there's some pieces we'll go through, but before we get to that, Andrew, do you want to like introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background of how you got to Microsoft and what your experience is?
Yeah. So I came through, I guess, a little bit more of the traditional route of going. I went to school for HR, so I did my undergrad in labor and employment relations. I thought I was going to go do union stuff. Didn't end up going that direction. I then went on and got my master's degree in human resources and employment relations, all from, I don't know if you can see the blurry pendant right here, all from Penn State University. And during my master's is where I actually started finding my way to Microsoft through our HR rotation program. So it's amply named HR2P, where you join for an internship, then you join for 3 years of different rotations all throughout HR. My foundation is built on recruiting and talent acquisition, specifically in strategic talent management in those ways. And I've been all over the place. I've done HR. I've been an industry recruiter, as we call it. I've been a university recruiter right now. I've done learning and development program manager. I've also done as a HR business partner, kind of all over. Now, all of that to gets me to where I'm at now is I've been at Microsoft for 5 years. I'm currently on Alex's team with our manager covering the business function side of the house. So my expertise and where I currently recruit for is think marketing, HR, and our legal team. So what we call it CELA is our team for legal, business data analytics whenever they pop up, as well as some, whatever else they decide they want to throw at me at that time of year. So that's kind of what I do. If I have any interns in the crowd, like I absolutely love getting to see you guys on Mondays whenever you join. It's a deep passion area of mine, but I could go on for hours. I'll give Alex a chance to introduce himself.
Well, I also want to point out, because that's some super important full circle moment for you. You joined via the HR2P program, and now you recruit for the HR2P program. So you one of the cool things about your experience specifically is you can speak so directly to your candidates about here's exactly what this program is and here's how it works. And not a lot of people really get to do that, because we get like cliff notes and then we execute on those cliff notes. You're like, no, I've lived it, which is so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
A little bit about my background. If Andrew is considered like the traditional route, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. Like I also went to school for HR, which people that went to school for HR that ended up in recruiting, a little bit of a rare breed, does not happen very often. But I started out in agency recruiting right out of my undergrad. Then I came to Microsoft as a contractor for 2 years. Then I tried during that whole time, my whole goal was to become full time. Unfortunately, was still early in my career, still needed to develop some skills. So I ended up going to another large tech company for another 2.5 years. Unfortunately, was one of the first rounds of layoffs from that tech company. Did a coding boot camp because why not in between that time, and then came back as a contractor to Microsoft, and then transitioned to full time after about 6 months of my new contract. And now we've been working together for about 2 years now on the business functions, aptly named BizFun, although they keep trying to change the name. We'll never let it happen.
Yeah, it's our name. You can't take it from us.
But so giving a little bit of framework, first of all, throughout the show, if you guys can put in like kind of where you're at in your journey, whether that's you're just starting to look at internships or you're graduated and looking at full time, or if you have any specific questions, we're going to go through some of the information, some of the stuff we want to talk about. But we feel that one of the most valuable pieces of this conversation for all of you that are attending is the Q&A section. And we really want to try and take some time to answer those. So kind of regardless of where we're at in our flow, with about 10 minutes left, we're going to try and switch over to Q&A. So the more that you can put those in there, those will come through, and then we'll try to select a couple that we think are probably more broadly applicable. And if you don't have anything top of mind, no worries. We also get a lot of questions in general. So we have a list of questions that we can also say, like, here's what most people ask us. That being said, go for it.
Oh, no shortage of questions in recruiting for sure. My LinkedIn is just full of them.
LinkedIn and inbox, which sometimes it's like, how did you even get my mail? Like,
how did you get my
email? But anyway, so we're very excited. But Andrew, do you want to briefly just kind of address kind of the reality of what some of our candidates are facing and some of the people we work with these days?
Yeah, I think that it's a challenging time for sure. Like finding jobs in whatever's going on in the world right now. The market is tough. The competition is high. It's just a super challenging time. It's like, is going to school going to actually find me the job that I'm looking for? There's a lot of uncertainty. And the reality is, like, it takes a lot of work to find it. But I think our hope is that this session and other learnings that you can gain from AI Skills Fest is going to help you become an amazing candidate for roles, not just at Microsoft, but just in general. Because with the big thing about us at Microsoft is growth mindset. We want you to be successful, and we want you to have Microsoft work for you, and you take us and build your skills. And if that means that it's not necessarily with us, that's totally fine. Maybe we're a stepping stone to get you where you want to go, or maybe you have to take some stones to get to us in the future. It was a weird way to say it, but
it's totally cool. And we want to be real with, like, we hear it and we see it all the time, that it's hard out there, and there's only so much that we can do to help. And so this is our effort to try and help you all in any way that we can on this side. So with that, let's hop into the first section, which I think is probably one of the most interesting, because some people will not believe us when we say some of the things that we have in here, and that's totally fine. But let's talk about the role of HR in hiring and in recruiting. And let's talk about some of the myths, some of the realities, and just we'll give you our transparent, like, here's what our day-to-day kind of looks like and where we see this show up. Andrew, do you want to address the number one myth that people think about our job these days?
Yes. Yeah. These days, everybody thinks that, Andrew, why do you have a job? Like, can't AI just do your job for you? And I thankfully right now, I can say that AI is not going to replace me at the immediate moment. The great news is that us at Microsoft, a lot of folks think that they apply and it goes into the black hole of an applicant tracking system. They think that it goes in there and no human actually looks at it. I can tell you this, that at Microsoft specifically, we do not have a system that allows AI to reject you automatically. The system is there to help us, but it doesn't actually have the privileges necessary to actually reject a candidate. A resume has to come to a person. Alex and I are still in the weeds during the hiring season from August until roughly April-ish, are reviewing resumes. We're deep in it. We're heads down. We're looking at the resumes. A human is actually touching those. And I think that there's like one common misconception is whenever you apply is the idea of like, yeah, but you say that, Andrew, but I got rejected within less than 24 hours of applying. And that feels like AI. And it's like, it does feel like AI, but I do want to call out that within our process, if you apply to a job and you go in, you're going to be asked a few required qualification questions. So if you say no to those qualification questions, it's kind of a yes, no, like a one or a zero, or do you pass or do you not? And that's not really an AI rejecting your, like looking at your resume at that point. It's, are you in, for example, like really good one is if you are an intern, and I'll speak specifically to the US, if you're an intern and you're looking for internships, or excuse me, if you're a student and you're looking for internships, you are required to have at least one semester remaining following the completion of the internship. That's a good example of one. And if you say, no, I'm graduating, I do not have one semester remaining, I'm graduating in May, or I graduated in May, and I will not be returning to school, then you're technically not eligible for that internship. You're not eligible for that role. And that's whenever you would be rejected immediately. But it's not an AI doing it. We still review resumes, even if we get to them pretty quick.
That is the simplest of computer logic. It's, do you meet the minimum required qualifications? If yes, you go into the system and we will review you. If no, then the system will do the automatic rejection. There's no AI involved in that. But like truly, when we're going through, so we will have people apply, and then on our side, we'll get the pool of candidates. And that, for the most part, at a company like Microsoft, and it's different for every company, that means thousands of applications per every role.
Right.
And so the way that we find the people that ultimately, and more so, it's not necessarily us making the decisions, it's our partnership with our managers and our managers making the decisions on who progresses. We're using keywords and we're using filters and we're using Boolean logic, which if you're not familiar is like and or not function. So like if it's a software engineer role, it could be like Python and hyper-threading and cloud computing. Maybe not for an intern role, but generally speaking, we're using those keywords and then we're reviewing resumes, shortlisting them, sharing them with hiring managers, and then they usually will make the final call on, does this person fit the role that I'm moving forward into? I go. So there's no AI in any of that, which is crazy.
And I think it's important to note that we spend, like Alex and I are the ones that are helping to write job descriptions in most a lot of circumstances.
Yes.
Those job descriptions, we don't try to hide those searches from you. We try to make it clear what we're looking for in the job description. So I want you to like go in and actually read that body paragraph of what it is and what the intro of the job is, and use that to inform your resume. Like if you just jump down to the required qualifications and you say, oh, how many years of experience do I have? Oh, I have that years of experience. And then you immediately apply. That's a good way to go through and like just get mass amounts, but it's not going to be quality for the role that you're applying to. So like reading through those job descriptions that we've painstakingly gone over to write and get in and then get approved through our legal process and everything to make sure that those are clear. We don't try to hide that from you because we want to hire you. Like, honestly, like
if you're the best candidate for the role, we want you in the job. Exactly, we want to review that resume and be like, here you go, manager, like the best candidate for your role. But so that's one of the big myths that a lot of people misunderstand about us and are surprised to hear. And again, I don't think people believe us when we say this, but trust us, our lives would be so much simpler if AI did it. We review, I'm not kidding, thousands and thousands of resumes in a very short period of time. It is a very arduous process, but it's a very rewarding process for us. So we do it. That being said, we do use AI through parts of the process. Andrew, do you want to talk about maybe a couple of some of the things that you use it for, and then I can tack on some of mine as well.
Yeah, I think that the ones, and maybe I hopefully I'm not stealing this one from you, but
Okay.
in the actual like screening process, we will use that like AI transcription.
Hmm.
And we typically, but that's a up to the candidate type of situation
Yeah.
where we ask, are you okay with me transcribing this? And that just allows us to be able to focus on you instead of just sitting in my notebook that I have here, or typing in OneNote and getting it in, getting all that information. It allows me to just focus on our conversation. So that way we have a better experience for you, created for you. And that data is then taken, and I still have to write the feedback manually myself. Like I can't go and use Copilot to formulate and write that feedback that I give to the manager if I'm doing the resume or the review. Then I don't have to blah my words.
So okay.
If
Okay.
I'm not reviewing that, or I'm not using Copilot to write that. It has to be written
Yeah.
by me. I use it as note taking resources in that process. But that's
Yeah.
again with your permission.
Yeah. So we in an interview scenario, we ask the candidate's permission. If they say yes, then we use it to transcribe, and that takes off so much of the effort on. I can't tell you how many interviews I've been a part of where, or I've heard feedback from a candidate where I was like, I'm pretty sure my interviewer was emailing during the interview, and it's like, you usually are spending half of your interview, like half your mental capacity, like taking notes, because you're like, I have to be able to remember this, and I have 4 other interviews that I'm doing within a short period of time. So that's taken a lot of the drudgery off of some of that, and it allows it to be so much more conversational. Like that has been so much more enjoyable. And to your
Right.
point, the actual feedback, the final result, 100% human. It's just we use the notes as reference material. We write and make final decisions on ourselves. We don't ask AI for any feedback or what its thoughts are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's our
yeah,
thoughts. Yeah.
100%. One of the things though that I've also found that's been really really cool, and this has been something that I actually actively recommend. So for candidates in the interview process, we have something called the Candidate Code of Conduct, and that outlines some of the basic concepts around what is okay to use AI for in the actual interview versus what's not. And one of the big things that I always say is, if you're comfortable, if you're interested, if you think it'll save yourself time, pick your favorite AI and use that to format your resume. Use that to blend your skills with whatever the job description is so that it can be more tailored and take that time off of you. Interviewing and applying is hard enough as it is. And so definitely utilize that. And the big call out though is that if you are using AI or a similar tool to generate your resume based off of your experiences, reread it before you apply and make sure that it truly represents your experience.
Right.
Because I cannot tell you how many times we've had candidates that have an amazing resume, which is our real first exposure to them, and then we get them into an interview, and a manager will ask like, well, on your experience, you mentioned this, this, and this. Can you tell me about it? And they can't because it wasn't their experience, and they're like, oh, that was a hallucination, which is a real thing. So
Right.
there's definitely like using it for resumes, but also Andrew, I think using it for interview prep as well, right?
Yeah. You use it to kind of formulate what best questions that you could come up with for put the job description in there and say, hey, what do you think kind of questions are really strong to ask? Use it for market research to understand the role a little bit better. Use it for prepping in different ways, can really help you stand out and kind of show up. And then, you know, going deeper and not just expecting AI to give you the whole answer, use it as the tool that it is to get you to where you want to be. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's been Andrew and I typically have a fairly similar opinion of this, which is there's a lot of conversation around AI in corporate America and in everything. We don't want to pontificate and philosophize a little bit too much, but like for us, it's just a tool. And so just like any other tool, it's figuring out where does this work well and what is it actually good for versus trying to just force it into everything. And so a lot of what we do in our job is testing out different things and seeing, does this work? Does this make sense? And the answer isn't always yes, to be completely honest.
Right.
That being said, generally speaking, rule of thumb, and I cannot say this for every company, and I cannot say about the AI in sourcing and filtering and all that. For that's just a Microsoft thing. Like that's how we operate. We cannot speak for any of our peers in the industry. We don't have that information. But rule of thumb for any candidates that are thinking about utilizing AI for their applications is, if it represents you authentically to help you either apply or prepare for interviews, generally a good sign, generally a yes. If you are utilizing it to misrepresent yourself either in the interview itself, which that's something that we have both seen quite a lot of these days, or misrepresent your experiences on the resume, in the end, that's not going to help you, and it shows up pretty common on that side. So authenticity, representing yourself versus misrepresenting yourself, like draw the line for yourself and make sure you kind of sit on the right side of that.
Right.
All right, we got through a good chunk of that, and we're sitting at 21. Do we want to actually? We had so much more advice we were going to go through here,
Yeah.
but we're getting some really good questions. Do you think we want to switch to some Q&A?
Yeah, I think we can do some Q&A. I think that as we go into Q&A, I think it's important to remember that and I do want to touch on this, there's no black and white absolute advice that we're going to be able to give you. There's no magic bullet that says, how can I, like, this guaranteed way is going to get you a job at Microsoft. There's the differences between Andrew the recruiter and Alex the recruiter. There's subtle differences and whatnot, even between the two of us that work on the same team. So even in the industry, it's just kind of a standard practice to understand that there isn't one bullet that's going to save you. What you can do is just build the best experience, the best version of your resume that you can, to kind of put that out there. And if anybody that's trying to like tell you that they have the one and only right answer, they might be trying to sell you something. So look, probably a little bit too honest, but think about that. Think about it a little bit deeper in there. But yeah, we have some really great questions coming in. I've been kind of peering at them a little bit. Alex, do you want to start with the question from Ivy?
Yeah. So Ivy asks, for candidates with 1 to 2 years of experience, what are the top 3 things that make a recruiter shortlist a profile for a data analyst or data engineer? I love this question because I'm a huge data nerd, and I am kind of like a recruiter. I like to think of myself as a data analyst disguised as a recruiter, and I like to play with all of our tables. And I'm like, I can do SQL querying. Just give me access to the database. And they're like, nah.
You're our tools guy. I'll let you take that one. Yeah. You're our tools guy.
Well, so here's the thing that I will say. And this is generally, there's not necessarily a specific, for this role I look for X, because most of the time the way that our hiring works is we'll get demand. So like, hey, we're going to hire for 2 of this, 2 of that. And then Andrew and I, we go and set what's called a rec strategy meeting. And that's just, hey, manager, tell me about your team. Tell me about your role. What product do you work on? What are you looking for? Where's the gap? And so a lot of times for us, it's really cool because we work with a lot of managers that are like, hey, I'm looking for someone junior. I'm really excited to bring some new ideas and some new skills onto the team. We have people that are getting promoted out and moving to other spaces. So we created this gap, and we want to continue to give opportunities for other people to mentor and teach and do all that stuff. And so during that conversation, we will ask for, what are the key skills you need for your job? And the thing that, and I'll say this because I think it's true, and Andrew, you can agree or disagree with me, but we have like the role titles, and no matter how many times we hire for the same role title, I have found the actual thing that the manager is looking for on the back end is usually very different, because all the teams are different, their product groups are different, their stack is different. So I think the most important thing, and this is not probably going to annoy you a little bit, is looking at the job description to see if there is any of those key highlights on, hey, hey, we're looking for somebody that does SQL querying, or we're looking for somebody that is really adept at building dashboards, or are we looking for somebody that has experience building, especially in the data engineering side, like ETL pipelines that go off to any of our models, because they're going to be partnering with the data science team. So really looking at that, because transparently, there is no one, this will get you this specific role, because even in recruiting, because we've both been in it for years and years, even recruiting roles, the one on this team is different than the one on that team. Early in profession is different than industry. Technical is different than non-technical. Executive is a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah,
like, there is no, this job is the exact same and here is the exact same. Now there's best practices, like you should definitely know how to analyze data and be able to drive insights and like do things, especially in the data analyst piece. And there's like some core and common skills, but how they show themselves in a company like Microsoft, or even in different companies across the board, that's different. And that's where you either can find that information via the job description, hopefully if it's written well, or, and I highly recommend this, not necessarily reaching out to recruiters, because you never know what a recruiter is supporting or what they're doing, but reaching out to the people that are in the jobs, in the companies that you are interested in. And bonus points, if they went to your university, it's usually a warm intro. And then asking them, what is your special, specific version of this role? And genuinely listen to it and go, do I match this, yes or no? And do I want to match this, yes or no? Like I found I like variety in my role. If my role is the same thing over and over and over again, I get bored and I'm not going to be successful.
I think it's also important to note that whenever this is kind of the advice. I just shared this with an intern that I was meeting earlier today. I'm not going to share her name, but I literally met with her at like 3:30 today.
She's in the chat.
she might be in the chat. But I was just sharing with her, it's like, connect with, whenever you're on LinkedIn, connect with recruiters or just maybe follow recruiters and follow what they post, follow what they have going on. Think of them as like social media influencers for hiring process. Follow them. But the person that you actually want to reach out to, who's going to be able to help you out with the day-to-day of like what that job is the actual business professional that is doing the job that you want to do. You're going to get more value out of that person than reaching out to Alex or Andrew. And whereas we're going to be experts in the process and asking those types of questions. But if you come to us and say, can you get me a job? I'm going to say, sorry, can you go to the career site? Like I don't know what you're looking for. So kind of doing that type of a process. And I want to get some more questions here for us.
For sure.
We've answered a lot of them already here. I'm going to answer this one real quick. I'm going to say the name and I'm probably going to butcher it. Sai, I think I said that right. Is it mandatory for a resume? Sai, it could be Sai. I do apologize. Thanks for your patience on that. I work in recruiting, but I am terrible with names sometimes. Appreciate it. Is it mandatory for a resume to be one page for peeps with less than 2 years of experience? I don't think it's mandatory, but I would be advised. I would be careful of why is it going to 2 pages if you only have 2 years of experience. Make sure that the space that you're using on that second page is utilized wisely. If you have 1 page and then you go to like only 25% of the next page, maybe you should be cutting something out to get it back to that 1 page. But if you're trying to tell, and I'm getting ahead of myself, which is if you're trying to, the story you're trying to tell with your resume, if you need that second page to tell that full story, then I want to hear it. I want to hear your full story. But yeah, we'll move on from there. We only have a couple more minutes.
There's also a potential read of this that's what if it's less than 1 page versus a full 2 page or going over 1 page as well? Because is it mandatory for it to be 1 page for less than 2 years? So if they don't have a lot of experience,
I see.
How do they get it to that 1 page, right?
That's I'm going to go on my soapbox again and talk about personal projects.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about personal projects for that one. So one of the big things for me that I like to see as a recruiter, and we're just about at time, so I want to get through
we were told we can go over. They're being nice to us, so we'll go a couple minutes over. But there's conversation. This definitely could have been an hour, but it
could definitely be an hour. So personal projects. What are you doing outside the classroom? Like if you just go to school and you're just kind of going home, but you're not really doing any extracurricular activities, then I want you to understand that that's going to possibly limit your ability to kind of fill out that full page on your resume. Now, there's a misconception. I am personally an advocate for people that work full time and go to school, because I did that. And you hear Andrew say extracurricular activities. I don't have time for that. I got to pay my way through school. I did the same. I was there. I fully understand it. Don't if you worked at Chipotle for 40 hours a week while you were working full time, or if you're like me and you worked at Walmart unloading trailers and hauling boxes and throwing microwaves around, and hoping that you don't have to go get workman's comp for working in a warehouse. Like if you're like that, if that's your angle, like don't be afraid to include that, because that's your story that you're trying to tell. That is the information that I want to know, that tells me, okay, Andrew is, he's trying to get into HR. He's trying to work into recruiting and to give back to different communities that he is super passionate about. But he's working 40 hours a week. That's grit. That's like determination. That is a lot of things that we want. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll do this at the risk of hyperfixating on this, but I think it's a really good question. Is start with what you have, and if you don't have a lot, then find something to add. So like,
right.
I was a student athlete. You can't tell anything, but I'm relatively tall, so I played basketball, and then coming out of my first year or sophomore year of college, I got cut from the team, and for the first time in my life, I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. And one of my friends was like, well, why don't you just, join a committee? And I was like, our school has committees? Like, what even is that? But so like my first resume was literally just like me, and like I worked at Nordstrom a little bit, and like I worked at like the local set, like I can't remember what it was called, but it was like a beach club or whatever. Sounds nicer than it was, I promise you. But so it was like I had this very sparse resume because most of my time was spent doing basketball. But I like did some coaching for some kids, and I did some reffing. So like I put what I had on there. And then I used that to join a committee, which was unpaid. It was just basically like a school club. That then led me to join another committee. So now you can see my resume starting to fill up. That then led to a conversation around joining student government, which was kind of my first, like, hey, you got to debate people live and you got to present in front of people, which is funny because now I do that partially for a living here. And so you can see how it's like, we talk about stepping stones of like, it's not, oh, I went to college and boom, I joined Microsoft. Like, it doesn't usually happen that way. It's how do I just take incremental steps, as small as just having an extra conversation with a professor that allows you to be a research assistant, or be a TA, or join a committee, or join a club, or be like have a job while you're going to school. Like all of that is relevant information. And then that also leads into any additional personal projects or even school projects that you have. Like if you think it's relevant to the position, like we'll reference the data one. If you are like in school to be a data analyst and you don't have any experience doing data analytics, then put your projects on there. I'm like, hey, like this was the school project and here's what we did and here's what we accomplished. But also go outside the norm of like, here's the standard ones do. I'm going to do a unique one, and that will hopefully help me stand out a little bit.
Right. So we're going to wrap up with one last question here. I'm going to go with, was this Novell? Am I saying that right? 523.
Numbers.
I'm going to just jump into it there for it. We're running close in time. Hi, I'm an MBA student navigating full-time recruiting. I'm wondering if there's a timeline for when roles typically open. If not, what is the best way to stay informed about roles as they open? This is a pretty
sounds like a plan, because we literally have that written down to like, let's talk about when jobs open up.
It's such a very common question. So there's a few things to think about with Microsoft or early profession recruiting. If you're graduating from school and you're looking for internships, generally our timelines are from August until about April. In that time frame is where we're hunting for interns, we're hunting for full-time new grads in that space. In order to stay up to date on what roles are coming available, I want you to go to our career site. There's an ability on our career site to set up career job notifications. It'll send an email directly to you that says, hey, these are the jobs that were posted every day if you want. The other option is every week. I do every week. It'll set it up to send you notifications of when things are going live. And honestly, there are times where you'll know about the job that gets posted before we do. and you'll be able to get on that and apply as early as possible, which is the best way to stand out and to stand out within that process, is to apply as early as possible. I think that is going to have to be our last question.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And I think we'll wrap up there. Alex, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah. Well, first of all, so many incredible questions. We didn't even get to any of our prepared ones. There's just so many. We're so sorry if we weren't able to get to yours, but we really do appreciate you all taking the time to come in, join us. For a lot of the stuff we talked about, there actually is an Ask a Recruiter series on the MS Learn YouTube channel. There's a bunch of those videos are coming out. Some of them have already been posted. We have more. Andrew and myself, I think, are some of the last ones that get posted. So if you want to hear us talk more, there's more to come. But we want to sincerely thank you for taking your time to come and hang out with us and ask such great questions and let us share a little bit about our experience and everything that's involved. So stay tuned. There's more to come on the Ask a Recruiter series.